Well, welcome everybody. I'm Lucille. I'm the president of the organization of the Rotary, and I want to welcome everybody here tonight. We have a wonderful program for you. For those of you who don't know anything about the Rotary, we do meet twice a month. We've been doing something on Zoom once a month, and then sometimes we have a wonderful fellowship meeting over at Beijing House, which is great. And there are meetings in between. Different committees want to meet in between. We have 7 areas of focus. We do a lot of good things in the community. Had a wonderful program on Zoom last night, which I will tell you after we bring in our guest speaker. However, we do want to. I'm going to turn it over right now to our guest speaker, who is the Reverend Natasha. And Natasha Smith, will you please say what you were going to say?
Well, wait, Lucille, you were going to do something first before we started.
Oh, I was going to do that, but you know what? Let's do the moment of silence first. Okay,
sure.
That's important.
All right.
Well, I just thought tonight before we get officially started, that with everything going on in Ukraine and Russia and Belarus, that we should just have a moment of silence.
Yes.
If it's your desire to pray, you may do that. If it's just your desire to spend good thoughts and vibes that way, that's fine too. But just a moment to send them our best wishes.
Thank you, Natasha. Yeah, it's a heavy time. And by the way, we always start our meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance. So I have my trusty flag here, if you will, all together. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And also, when we start our program, we have it's a 4-way test. The Rotary has a 4-way test, and it's of all the things we say and do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it bring goodwill and better friendship? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? So, our guest tonight, you've probably met her. You did meet her once. She was wonderful as she was in our program called Lines of Fire. She was an actor. We're thrilled that she's here tonight. But I'm going to have our wonderful honorary member, dear friend, and webmaster, Jean DiGiacomandrea, introduce her because she set this up for us. Jean, take it away.
Thank you, Lucille. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We've invited Natasha here tonight to kind of give us the scoop and the 101 on DEI. A lot of people don't quite understand what it's about. Natasha will tell you herself. She is not an expert in this field. She is speaking from clergy, from being involved in the town's committee and some other committees that she's been on. But she has got a wealth of knowledge, and she's just going to let us know what's going on in Scituate and some initiatives that are going on around the world. So, Natasha.
Thank you, Jean, and thank you, Lucille, for inviting me to be here tonight. Yeah, so like Jean said, I'm not an expert. I am clergy. I am the priest of St. Luke's Episcopal Church here in Scituate. And I also serve as the clergy representative on our town's the Scituate Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Advisory Committee, which was commissioned by our select board last year. So I've got some of that knowledge to bring as well, but I didn't study this. I have no special expertise. So this is just me sharing from my experience and what I know and what I've learned. So I hope you'll all take it with that in mind. So I have some slides to share with us tonight, just because you don't need to just sit and listen to my voice the whole time. And it's always fun to have something to look at. So I'm going to go through what I'm going to go through, and then at the end we'll have time for questions, and I'll do my best to answer them. So I wanted to start tonight with the way that we start at our town meeting at our committee level, and that's with a land acknowledgement. So this is just a pretty picture of Scituate here to look at. And I'm actually taking tonight's land acknowledgement straight from the website of First Parish Unitarian Universalists. They just had a really nice way of explaining it and then giving a land acknowledgement. So this is a total steal from them, and total credit goes to them for it. So a little background, a land acknowledgement is a formal statement that recognizes the indigenous peoples that were the traditional custodians of a particular area. Land acknowledgement is a powerful way of showing respect, and it's a step towards correcting the stories and practices that erase the history and culture of indigenous peoples. It acknowledges the history and the legacy of colonialism that impacted these people, their practices, and their land. It's a step towards honoring the truth. So tonight, let us acknowledge with respect and admiration the Massachusetts and the Wampanoag peoples, the traditional customs of the land on which we are meeting today. Let us recognize that they lived here and cared for this land over countless generations. Let us remember that this land was stolen from them by European colonizers. Let us honor the resilience of the indigenous peoples who continue to live in this region despite the legacy of colonialism that still impacts them and this land. Let us strive to increase our understanding and celebrate the continuing contributions of Native peoples in the life of this region. Let us accept that we borrow the earth from our children and work to become better stewards of it. So that's a land acknowledgement. It's pretty straightforward. We also begin every meeting with safe space norms, which we have actually been able to push forward. And now the select board also has some that they use, pretty much these same ones every time they begin a meeting as well. And they're going to start to try to incorporate them into all town meetings. So you might start seeing this if you go to other town meetings as well. So safe space norms are: we here tonight are committed to providing an environment of respect during this meeting. We ask all members to interact in a polite manner, even when there is disagreement. We value the participation of our community and want all participants, including marginalized and minoritized communities, to feel welcome and respected. We ask our committee members and all who participate to commit to these standards to support and respect our community. So this is just sort of simple things that we can do as a community, both like in a group meeting like this, or in town meetings, or in other meetings that we attend, that sort of sets up the tone for a meeting. It reminds us that the land that we live on was actually not free for taking when our ancestors arrived here. And it helps us to remember that we come from these different ancestors, different cultures, different perspectives. So what's normal for some of us is not actually normal for all of us. And it's just a way to keep us mindful of that as we go into a meeting. And sometimes we discuss things that are a little bit difficult to discuss. So we're more aware and don't make assumptions that what we say or do doesn't affect somebody in a different sort of way than perhaps even we meant it. So diversity, equity, and inclusion, though, it's not just about race. It also means gender equality, the LGBTQIA+ community, people with special needs, really anyone who kind of falls outside of those traditional societal norms would fall under sort of a category of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And when we say DEI, that's what we mean. It's a little bit quicker to say. I think often, though, we really focus quite a bit on race and the LGBTQ+, but there's a lot more to all of this. It's about acknowledging all of that and then understanding that not every person comes with the same background, the same experiences of the world. People are diverse, and sometimes someone is going to need something a little different than somebody else to help them have true equity in a situation. So I have this cartoon. I hope you guys can see it. I'm sorry, I'm not better at this sort of thing. So this cartoon here, so you can see on this side, everybody's given the same size box, and this is equality. These three people all given the same size box. I see Joan with her thing out. I'm gonna see if I can get this going again. Ah, there we go. Haha, there we go. We got it. Just needed a minute. So, here on this side, you've got the equity with all three boxes the same, but you can see this little guy here in the purple shirt can't see because he's so much shorter than the other two. Equity is where the tallest guy here in the blue shirt doesn't get a box because he doesn't need one. He can still see the baseball game. But the little guy who couldn't see at all with the box got both of the boxes so that he could also see. So the cartoon is sort of a little demonstration of how the work of diversity, equity, and inclusion is to be done. We need to be sure that that short kid over there can still see the game. And that might mean that he's going to need more support, more resources than the tall man on the other end of the scale. I like to actually think about this in another way too. Like if one of these people had vision problems, let's say the tall one had vision problems and the short one's vision was fine, right? We wouldn't give them both glasses because the short one, you wear somebody else's glasses and it looks fuzzy and you can't see right. So you wouldn't give them both glasses. You'd only give them to the person who needed them. That's equity, because then they can both see the game clearly and well. That's different than equality of giving them both a pair of glasses, right? So the goal is that everyone can kind of see the game. And that's sort of the point of this work, is that everyone can have that equal access to things that will help them in life. So to do this work, we have to look both at our history as a country and the things that we've gone through, and also sometimes our own personal histories as well, and where our ancestors come from, where our parents and what our grandparents were able to have access to or not have access to, and how that set us up in lives to have things or not have things, easily accessible or not. So learning more fully about our history as well as the history of our country. Obviously, racism is a big piece of our history as a country with the slavery. And then acknowledging that things haven't always been fair and they haven't always been kind to all of the people who have lived here. A little bit like what we did in the Land Acknowledgement that we started our meeting with, right? Acknowledging that our ancestors came in and took land that was actually already claimed. The Native Americans here in Massachusetts, Wampanoags, they already owned the land. They didn't think of it that way because that's not how their culture describes land. They're caretakers of land rather than owning it. But when the Europeans showed up, it wasn't really free for the taking, but that's what we did nonetheless. So it's acknowledging that and then seeing how that has played forward in history to where we are today and the disadvantages that they've had to endure because of our different perspective that came in and really created problems for them. So I was actually looking at your Rotary website, and this kind of work is exactly what your organization is promoting right now. It's promoting learning about this and acknowledging history, and then taking steps to ensure that this sort of history isn't going to repeat itself. And in places, maybe even needing to do some reparations so that you can kind of start to get everybody to the same starting point, back to the sort of equity side of things. So I actually want to share a little video, sorry, for you. So hopefully I'll be able to do that. So I'm gonna stop this share and then I'm gonna share a different screen. So I call this video the race, but officially it's actually called, what's it called? Social Inequalities Explained in a $100 Race. So I am just, this worked earlier, so God willing, it will again. Can we all see this? Can you see it? Yes. Okay, great. All right, here we go.
Hey, line up. Line up. Everybody line up. We're about to race. Everybody line up. Shoulder to shoulder. Take off your backpacks. Basketball, line up. We're about to race. Hey, we are racing for a $100 bill. The winner of this race will take this. A $100 bill. Before I say go, I'm going to make a couple statements. If those statements apply to you, I want you to take 2 steps forward. If those statements don't apply to you, I want you to stay right where you're at. Take 2 steps forward if both of your parents are still married. Take 2 steps forward if you grew up with a father figure in the home. Take 2 steps forward if you had access to a private education. Take 2 steps forward if you had access to a free tutor growing up. Take 2 steps forward if you've never had to worry about your cell phone being shut off. Take 2 steps forward if you've never had to help mom or dad with the bills. Take 2 steps forward if it wasn't because of your athletic ability, you don't have to pay for college. Take 2 steps forward if you never wondered where your next meal was going to come from. I want you guys up here in the front just to turn around and look. Every statement I've made has nothing to do with anything any of you have done. Has nothing to do with decisions you've made. Everything I have said has nothing to do with what you've done. We all know these people up here have a better opportunity to win this $100. Does that mean these people back here can't race? No. We would be foolish to not realize we've been given more opportunity. We don't want to recognize that we've been given a head start. But the reality is we have. Now, there's no excuse. They still got to run their race. You still got to run your race. But whoever wins this $100, I think it'd be extremely foolish of you not to utilize that and learn more about somebody else's story. Because the reality is, if this was a fair race and everybody was back on that line, I guarantee you some of these black dudes would smoke all of you. And it's only because you have this big of a head start that you're possibly going to win this race called life. That is a picture of life, ladies and gentlemen. Nothing you've done has put you in the lead that you're in right now. When I say go, on your mark, get set, go! If you didn't learn anything from this activity, you're a fool.
So that video shows us, right, that we don't always all start in the same place, and that it's not necessarily something that we personally have done in life. And it's not always even necessarily something that our parents or our grandparents have done. Sometimes it goes even further back than that. However, it still affects our lives. It affects where we can get in our life and how hard we as individuals need to work and how much extra we need to give into life if we're back at the beginning of the start line rather than all those steps forward. And so that's the point of the DEI work, is how can we make those that start line a little more equal for everyone. And that doesn't mean we're going to take away from those people who had got to step forward. That means that we're going to help those people who didn't step forward be able to take those steps forward and have those opportunities and be given a chance for things that they wouldn't necessarily have had because of their life circumstances that they had no control over. So because of this work, and because it's become so important, particularly recently, brought into our consciousness recently, I should say, the select board here in Scituate just decided to pull together a special advisory committee for them of people who have done this work in amazing ways and can help them have some advice. And shortly after they pulled us together, they decided to issue a diversity, equity, and inclusion statement in October 15th. It went up on their website, so you can read it there. I'm going to read it for you now. So this is the Town of Scituate's statement on diversity, equity, and inclusion. The Town of Scituate Select Board unequivocally condemns racism, discrimination, and hate in all its forms that is present in our community. We commit to work to ensure that Scituate is a welcoming community that embraces diversity, equity, and inclusion. As elected leaders, we recognize our responsibility to understand and address all racial inequalities. We have a duty to ourselves, residents, employees, visitors, and businesses to ensure that everyone who enters Scituate is treated with respect and dignity. To that end, we pledge to work to educate ourselves, town employees, and town residents on racial justice issues. We will review our existing policies, practices, and procedures, and where necessary, enact changes to build a stronger, more equitable community. We will encourage diversity of voices and representation on Scituate town boards and committees. The Select Board further pledges to work on behalf of all residents and ensure that Scituate is a place where all individuals can live happily, free of fear, and with equal access to opportunities, regardless of race, ethnic background, national origin, religion, ability, gender identity, gender expression, or sexual orientation. So that's our town statement. And honestly, on some levels, it's not too far from what the Rotary is asking you all to do with your education and learning and exploring, and also hopefully some action at the end of that process. So in 2021, really, the advisory board for the town started to meet. There are 7 members from our town on that committee, and they come to us with a multitude of talents. I have really enjoyed getting to know all of them. They come from different backgrounds, from different perspectives of life, and all of them who live here in Scituate, which is just incredible to me. We also have who sit on the committee with us. We have the town HR director who sits there with us. We have a representative from the police department. We have a representative from the fire department. The school's new DEI director, Jamil Adams, who you may have seen at other things around town. He sits on our in our meetings with us. And select person, Maura Curran, is the one who is the select person who works with us. So they all have voice in our work on our committee. They don't get vote, but they at least get some voice and input, and we really listen to what they have to say. Because we were charged at the beginning of this with this very, very simple little charge here. It only has 3 points that are quite long each. So the charge for our committee was to review the town policies, procedures, and budgets for the purpose of advancing equity and justice for all, with a focus on eradicating racism, eradicating from the town of Scituate oppression, racism, injustice, and violence against all people. That was just one of the 3 points that we have to work on. That's a big one. 2 was to report to the select board on the results of that work at least 1 time per calendar quarter. And 3 is to make recommendations based on the results of such work for the consideration of the Board of Selectmen within 12 months from the date of appointment of a committee chair. So our task really is to review, report, and recommend. Review, report, and recommend. That's our focus. So we spend a lot of time doing just that, reviewing, reporting every quarter to the select board, and making some recommendations to them. The first year, last year, when we were together, we really spent a lot of time just organizing ourselves and figuring out how we were going to systematically review every single department in the town. We're not just talking police and fire and schools. We're talking every department in town. We have been talking to Scituate Facts. We've been talking to the town social worker. We've been talking to the veterans. We've been talking to the water department. We've been talking to every single department, the DPW, all of it. The list goes on and on and on of all these different departments that we are taking time to find out what are they already doing, and what would they like to do to make it more in terms of DEI work, and how would that be practical for them to do. So we started with these interviews of some of the more key groups, key town departments, and we asked them, what are your policies? What are your procedures around hiring practices and training? And if there is an instance in which somebody is being bullied or marginalized because of something that they cannot control, race, gender, sexual orientation, any of those things. So from those, I have to say our first ones, obviously we started with some of the really key places that have a lot of interaction with people. So we started police department, the fire department, and we sort of lumped together like the town health. So that was the veterans, the social worker, the town health department, and Scituate Facts, which does the addiction work here in town. So we started with some of these groups, and we were actually very impressed with the things that were already being done in terms of DEI work. And of course, no one's perfect, so we can still find some ways to help them get more training and do some more work, but we felt very encouraged by what we were hearing already. We also, though, wanted to think about some really visual ways for us as a community to make a statement around DEI, things that people here in our town, as well as visitors who come in, would see that Scituate is committed to this work of DEI. So in our last report to the selectmen, we recommended some new things. I'm going to share my screen again because this is kind of fun stuff to see. So weirdly, one of the things that we decided to talk about was the bathrooms in town. So you might not think about bathrooms as being a diversity, equity, and inclusion sort of moment, but there are lots of people who struggle with their gender identity, and it can be really painful moment for them when they have to use a public restroom. They're not sure which one to use, the male one or the female one. They could be embarrassed if they go into one that perhaps is what they identify as, but doesn't maybe match what their physical body is or their physical appearance. People can, say rude things to them and ask them to leave, not thinking that they belong in that bathroom. And so we wanted to sort of make it a little bit more accessible for everyone to use the bathroom free of that kind of embarrassing moment. So we did a review of all the bathrooms in Scituate. Who knew that that would be part of our charge? And we discovered that of all of our public bathrooms in Scituate, most of them very easily could be for either gender. They weren't gender specific in any way. There were 2 bathrooms in town that would of course need some modifications beyond just sort of putting up a new sign. So that's still in progress. But you're going to start to see signs like you see here on your screen right now on the public bathrooms in town. We recommended this to the select board and they have approved it. Obviously, it'll take a while for the DPW to get around to get them all up, but they're just gender neutral. It's a toilet and it says restroom. We have it in Braille for those who can't read it. The ones that are handicapped have the little handicap symbol there, which is a gender neutral symbol as well. And it's just where you go to the bathroom. There's no sort of gender assignment needed to use the bathroom. So these sorts of things, it wasn't a big change, right? We just changed some signs on some bathroom doors, but it's huge. It speaks volumes to the people in our community and the people who come to visit our community about how we feel about those sorts of issues here in town and the inclusiveness that we're willing to offer out to everyone. So we saw that as sort of an easy thing to start with. We also spent some time thinking about our sister cities that we have. So you might know that here in Scituate, we have some sister cities. Sorry, I don't have a slide for that one. Sister cities, right, in Ireland and in France. But we also have a really huge Cape Verdean population here in Scituate. We have a well-established, and they have a long history here in Scituate, and they've been amazing ability to give back to our community in lots of different ways over the years. And so we thought that, we spent all this time honoring our Irish heritage, right? St. Patrick's Day coming up. I'm sure we'll all be at the parade wearing our green, whether we're Irish or not. You're all Irish for the day, right? But we thought we need to also honor the other cultures. And one of the main other cultures in our town already is the Cape Verdeans. So we have begun to form a committee to think about having a sister city in Cape Verde, which is very exciting. And I know that they're starting to pull some people together who want to be a part of that. People are very interested in it. The select board is open to adding to our sister city collection a place from there. And Cape Verde has also shown interest in being willing to partner with us in that. So that will bring all kinds of great opportunities for us to have more diversity in the types of celebrations that we have, not just have the Irish ones, but have some great things from Cape Verde as well. So I'm really excited about that. And if you are interested in joining a committee around that, just let me know. I can connect you with the chair of that committee. Our other thing that we sort of continue to work on, I don't have a slide for it, I keep wanting to have one, is the work we've been reviewing and we've been researching, and we've been discussing deeply the idea of adopting an Indigenous Peoples Day onto our town calendar and into our town vernacular. You may know that the city of Boston has recently added Indigenous People Day to its calendar. And it's now doing lots of different events and activities to help raise awareness for the ways in which the Native Americans and others were treated before the settlers first arrived. It's a day to celebrate their heritage and to remember the history of their people, which is full of richness and goodness. And here in our town has been a part of this land's history long before the white man even arrived, right? We see the picture on our town seal of a Native American and a white settler shaking hands and exchanging things. It's because those Native Americans were here to help to begin with that our settlers were able to survive. So to do this work, we're actually partnering with another organization in town called STRIDE. STRIDE stands for, wait for it, Scituate Together for Representation, Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity. STRIDE. It's a community-run group. It's not commissioned by anyone. Anyone can be a part of it, but it's a group that does DEI work. And they're also working on this Indigenous People Day for the town. And so we decided we don't both need to be doing the same work and reinventing the wheel for each other. So we're beginning to explore how we can do that work together. And then how we can make that recommendation to the select board. So that's sort of some work in progress. So stay tuned about that exciting thing. But I did want to just say, STRIDE is a great group. You should get on their email list because they're always holding educational events and discussions around all kinds of topics with DEI and important things that affect Scituate directly. They're actually partnering tonight, unfortunately, with the library to do a LIT talk. So LIT is the school systems love, inclusion, and togetherness campaign that the school system is putting on. And so STRIDE has partnered with the school systems and with the library to host one of these discussions about a book and some stuff. And they're always doing great educational things. So I encourage you to find them on Facebook. They have a website, and connect in with them about how you can be better educated about this and some actions here. So I know I've talked for a long time, but I was told that before I sign off, I can shamelessly promote the work that my own church is doing. So I'm going to do that. So in 2020, you'll probably remember that George Floyd was killed by the unnecessary force used on him by police when he was being arrested. And for this triggered protests across the country against police brutality, especially calling attention to the number of people at that time that were people of color who were having to deal with police brutality. And as a nation, we became more alert of this and aware of the inequalities in the ways of people of color, especially Black people, though, were treated compared to whites in a lot of different ways. I often think that during the pandemic, we had more time to think about this and realize this, and that's why this has come to light more sort of fully during this pandemic time. So for us at St. Luke's, we decided that we couldn't really keep quiet about this. So we decided to join in those protests. So in those early pandemic days when we weren't even leaving the house, right? I invited people to come and stand on the church lawn, which is on the corner of 3A and First Parish, and with signs. So that's what they did. So here's some people standing in front of St. Luke's. We made signs both at home, people brought signs, and then also once we got there, some people put some signs together. And we made our signs to remind people that everyone was equal and that everyone is created by God equally, and that it's our responsibility to love our neighbor, no matter what they look like, what their abilities are, what gender they have, or who they want to love. We're just supposed to care for each other. and remain in community with everyone living in peace. And there's this desire for well-being for each other at the forefront of all of our actions. But we did this for a couple weeks, and it was pretty successful, as you can see from these pictures. People showed up, it was great. And then from this, we decided that it wasn't enough to just stand on our own front lawn and say we love people and we should be nice to them, right? Like that wasn't enough for us. So we actually started a social justice group. It's a bit like a committee, but we don't want to use that word because no one wants to be on a committee. So it's a group of people in the parish who are dedicated to helping our church and our town grow in their knowledge of DEI issues and to do the work of building a better community for everyone here in Scituate and the South Shore. We've offered a film and discussion around slavery. We did an online book group to educate ourselves. And then we started putting up yard signs. So you might have seen some of our yard signs. I think they're pretty cool. We've had them up and we put them up from time to time. We put them back up when we feel it's needed to be back out there again. We've had some other ones. I didn't have pictures of all of them. We had some quotes from Martin Luther King as well, and some other ones. But they were meant to sort of be sort of an ongoing education process and reminder to the rest of the community of the issues that we face in our country and our call to love each other that God gives to us. And we are in a great location because when you're leaving the middle school or the high school from picking up or dropping off your kid, you are staring right at our front lawn. So lots of people get to see what we put up. And we've actually had a lot of good feedback about it. I'm sure we've had some negative thoughts too, but we don't hear those so much, so it's okay. So we're actually now just starting our third year as a social justice group, and we are continuing to look for ways to be more visible as a community. So I hope that you'll hear more from us. We do have a big art show coming up, so I'm going to shamelessly plug that as well. Anyone who's an artist who's in high school or an adult is welcome to enter any kind of art that you would like. Our theme is who I am and what I know. So it's this idea that we start from who we are and what we know, and we state our own truth, and then we're able to hear other people's truths and how their truths are different from our own and move forward. So this art show is one way of showing who we are and speaking our truth through art. And anyone is welcome to come and see the art show, even if you don't put a piece in. Lucille has actually already agreed to be one of our judges for it. So you'll have her there for a friendly face. And I'm very excited to see the beauty of the diversity that these different pieces of art are going to bring to us. The art show itself is on the 27th, March 27th, from 1 to 3 p.m. At the church in our parish hall. So I also just wanted to end my time with you. I promise I'm coming to an end. Just to recommend that as you continue to do this work, we read as a parish Waking Up White by Debbie Irving, and we did a weekly discussion group about like 1 or 2 chapters a week. We had an amazing couple who leads these discussions from all over the country, actually. And thankfully, they live right here in Massachusetts. And I knew them already, so it was an easy invite. And they led us in that discussion. And we learned so much about who we are and what we know, and how maybe our truth isn't necessarily the whole truth or everyone's truth, and how our truth can be viewed through different lenses, and how that affects other people. So it really opened our eyes, I think, to why this work is so important. So I'd really recommend the book, Waking Up White by Debbie Irving. And, you know, if you want a next program or something ongoing as a Rotary Club, I would encourage you to have my friends come and lead a discussion. They're a biracial couple. He's a white man from Charleston, South Carolina, who is a descendant not just of slave owners, but actually slave traders here in New England. And his wife is an African-American woman from Virginia who is a descendant of slaves. So I'm sure that their ancestors are looking down on them and wondering how the heck that happened. But I think it's a good testament to the work that we can do in our country to have good racial relationships. And they're just so grace-filled by the way that they lead and have their different perspectives, but it's okay. It's never an argument. It's always just a discussion. So I highly recommend that. And now I'm just going to thank you for your time. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them. Or maybe you just all want to get on with your evening. That's fine too.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I've asked everyone to unmute themselves, so if you'd like to ask questions, please do.
I actually have a question.
Okay.
You're on a 7-member advisory board, as you stated at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
How is that broken down by culture and religious? Like, my main name is McFarland. I mean, I come from a strong Irish Catholic background here, but many Cape Verdean friends. I mean, how is the diversity on that 7-member board?
So it's actually changed. We've had some change over from when we first started. I think, as we were figuring out how we were going to do what we were going to do, some members decided maybe that wasn't quite for them. So we do have a Cape Verdean. We started with 2 Cape Verdeans and an African American, and now we have 1 Cape Verdean and 1 African American. So, and it's just the shifting that happened. We've talked a little bit about religion. Obviously, I represent the clergy in town who are all Christian, so that's that. But we do have a Muslim on the board, and I'm not sure if other people are other religions. We just haven't talked a whole lot about it. So I just don't feel like I can speak very well to that. We also have, sorry, I forgot, we also have an Asian woman on the board too. And interestingly, it's mostly women. So I think that's kind of nice too.
Oh, outstanding, thank you.
And we do have LGBTQ+ people on it as well.
Very nice, thank you.
I just want to say that last night there was a terrific Zoom. Rotary put one on. They talked, as they said, they talked about peace and peace polls and it's cities of peace. But then someone got on from Duxbury, and I was really impressed with their how far they're getting with this DEI. That he had a wonderful PowerPoint, and just like you said, Natasha, I mean, they're involving every organization in town, in the town itself, and it was interesting because the Duxbury Club, they said that they had, I think they had 14 members, but we're down to 16, I think. And he said, by getting involved with the diversity and equity and inclusion, he said, we shot up to 22 Rotary members, which I thought was kind of cool. But, basically what you're talking about is something so timely and current that I could see other people, suddenly you're opening up you're opening up their mind about what's so current out there, So I will get you, he's the president of the Duxbury Club, and I'll get you his contact, because maybe we could pass some of the things. They're a little ahead of us. They're in it about a year and a half, maybe. I don't know. I want to talk to you because there were a couple of people that are on here tonight that were there last night. I think Dietrich and Belinda were there. So they're a little bit ahead of us, but I was so amazed how it's taking off and how much they're doing. Dietrich, are you there?
Well, wait a minute. I may hang on. Did I unmute myself?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can hear me, right? Okay. I was there, and Natasha, very interesting what you are doing and what you presented. And I think there is a lot of what you said. Rotary is listening with very, very perked up ears in terms of projects and programs that you're trying to institute for Scituate that deal with the subject of equality and helping your neighbor and those kind of things. I think we need to. What I might suggest that we focus on is that. Well, let me ask you first a different question. Are you familiar with the different areas of focus, what Rotary is engaged in and what its mission is?
Not fully, to be honest.
Okay, because it's funny as you had the pictures of the toilets there, actually, and others from the Rotary Club can narrate that story better than I do. It's a very long time ago, 20 years ago, since I probably mentioned it the last time. And Rotary was formed by 3 people in Chicago. Well, one had the idea and he talked to 2 other people. And what they found, it was the one person that came from somewhere, you know, his job got him to Chicago and he was all there by himself and had no friends and nothing to do and, you know, nobody to talk to. And one big problem was when he was in public streets, he couldn't go, if he wanted to go to the bathroom, where did he go to a hotel? Well, of course, the hotel was eager to usher him out, right? You don't want to have public people coming there. So the very first, so he got 2 friends, and so the 3 of them, they came up with their first Rotary project. That's over 100 years ago, which was to have a public toilet set up where Rotarians, help me out. Where was it in Chicago? On what square?
Know this. I wasn't.
Anyway, so
Michigan Ave at the library.
So that was the first community project that was set up by Rotary, and so Rotary does this all around the world. Actually, I'm talking now. You have your phone. So we are, in other words, to make a long story short, Rotary is eager to learn from you which projects are being sought by Scituate. Where do you see where you can help? Where you see that there is inequality, and we'd like to hear about that, and then work with you to help out in that area. You heard that just yesterday we had another Zoom, and what struck me there, that the Rotary clubs were talking with the towns. In particular, I heard it mentioned that the town manager was somebody that in particular sort of was interested in talking with the Rotary clubs, because that's sort of where you know, decisions can be made and also followed up on.
Yeah, so we have a whole working list. It's really long of great ideas that we've come up with. So I'm gonna like defer the answer to this question so I can review it, and maybe talk to the chair of the committee and see what would be good places that we might be able to ask you for help with some of the stuff, because we're well aware that we can't do all these projects on our own as an advisor. We're an advisory committee too, right? So it's a little different.
Yeah,
but there's a lot of stuff, and I'm sure like working together, we could come up with some projects for you guys to do.
Good.
I mean, we would like to hear about it, and even if you make a recommendation and maybe the budget isn't there to do it or so, come and make that recommendation to the Rotary Club.
Yes, I'm definitely going to bring this back to that committee and let them
Okay.
know that you guys are gung ho to help.
That would be your private budget there.
Yes.
Good. Anyone
Anybody,
else?
anybody else have a question or a comment or?
I just have a question which is probably irrelevant. I don't know if if it's relevant in this group, but it seems like a really needy place where this topic is in the schools. Is that something else completely separate or?
Yeah, so the schools have recently hired a DEI director. His name is Jamil Adams. He is way too cool for me, but I'm so glad that he's becoming my friend. And he's overseeing all of the schools, and he's actually set up his schedule where he is in every single school once a week. So he spends time directly with the children in each of those schools, the elementary, the Gates, and the high school, every single week. And he's got some big projects that kind of overview everything. He put together a wonderful program for Martin Luther King Day. It was the first time ever in Scituate that we had a big program like that. Unfortunately, because of COVID, right at that point, it was all online, so it wasn't quite as accessible, I think, as we had hoped to non-school community members. But absolutely, that's going to happen again next year as a community outreach from schools.
Yeah.
They're doing a ton, and I mean, if you could have him on here, and he could blow your mind with everything he's doing. So
Good. Well, that's where it's really needed, I think.
it is, yeah. And they're taking it. I feel like they're taking it really seriously at the school level. I have two kids. I have one at Jenkins and one at Gates. They're being amazingly quiet tonight. And between like hearing from them what they're experiencing, as well as getting to know Jamil better through this work, I think they're taking it really seriously, and they're doing good programs, age appropriate programs too.
Great.
My second grader is not learning what my eighth grader is learning. So.
I'm glad to hear that.
And I just want to say that
Thank you.
the lady that's speaking, that's Teresa. She's our associate, one of our associate members, and she's just from Florida. She's in Florida right now. Lucky
That's
you.
very hot. It's
And
very
you look
hot.
wonderful, by the way, Teresa.
Don't
Thank
tell us about the weather, Teresa.
Popping in.
It's
Yeah.
going to get warmer. You'll be spring very soon.
Yeah, sure. We're waiting. We're waiting.
And I will say too, I think somebody said it earlier about the Duxbury has a great DEI program going. I think at this point, all of the South Shore towns have a town DEI committee. So
Oh,
this part of Massachusetts is really doing a lot of work, and we do talk to each other and communicate with each other, and look to each other for like, Scituate's a little behind, to be honest, from the other towns on the South Shore. So we look to some of the other towns to see what they've done and what's worked.
I'll give you their link. I'll give you his name and the link. I was just, I was kind of, they seem like they've been doing it for a longer time than us. I don't know, but I was impressed with, with how organized it was and how it grew. So I'm hoping that's going to come for us too. You're doing great work. I mean, it's a great. How long has the committee been around? When did you start?
We started in 2021. This is
2020.
We were appointed for 3 years, so we're just starting our second year.
Okay.
And we did have at the beginning, any new committee, right? We had our charge, but we had to figure out how are we going to review every single policy of every single department in town, like reasonably, right? I mean, that's a huge task.
Mm-hmm.
So we spent a lot of time. I mean, we really did. We spent maybe like the first 5-6 months just talking about how are we gonna get this going and make it happen. And now we're starting to really dig in. So it's more, not that process isn't fun, but this seems much more fun and more what we signed up for than figuring out the process.
Well, you had some good visuals too. I mean, I thought the video that you showed was spoke volumes. It really did. It really did. So anyone else? Well, I so much appreciate this. Yes, somebody else spoke up.
I was just going to make a comment. I live up in Sharon, Mass, and I'm not even that aware of what we're doing. I know there's some form of committee, because I know when there was a online bullying incident,
Okay.
they got together to deal with that. But I'm impressed with what the small towns and the South Shore are up to. It's kind of new to me to hear this, as far as, the advocacy and getting the town officials and actually going and reviewing everything. I'm sure applications, ask the sex of the applicant and all that has to now be changed. And just the fact that you're putting new restroom signs up. I mean, we dealt with that at the playground here, what we were going to put up at one point, and it was boys and girls, and
Yeah.
but what happens when, I mean, now if our restrooms, our public ones are big, there are multiple stalls and all that, how would you deal with that as far as a sign? Would you just allow anyone to go in?
Yeah, so we reviewed actually what the inside of the restrooms look like. Like we went in and we're like, they've got stalls and urinals, or they just have urinals, right? So thankfully all of ours had both, except for the two, had both stalls and urinals. So anyone can go in and you can use the stall if you want to use the stall, you can use the urinal, if that's what works for your body parts, whatever. So we kind of left it up to people that way. There was
Ours
some.
don't lock. Our bathrooms don't lock. They're either unlocked or fully locked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you doing there? I mean, if
Yeah,
a boy-
so the stalls do lock individually. So if
Okay.
you go into a stall, but yeah, I mean, we had some discussion about maybe putting on some of the ones like near playgrounds and things, like this is a restroom with urinals, just so like people are aware that if you walk in, if your little girl walks in, you might not want them to see people using the
Right.
urinal, just to be aware more than nothing more than that, just awareness, or like this one has stalls. So we've had some discussions like that. The DPW kind of lands a little bit on what exactly gets put up, but that was our recommendation. That was approved by the select board, accepted by the select board. So now it's just working out exactly what they'll look like.
Now,
But it is, I mean, those were all things we talked about. So
are you planning any like big townwide events that kind of highlight what it's all about out there, projects, or, I guess the art show is something similar to that.
yeah, so we haven't talked too much because of COVID. We've been a little shy to have something big. The police department has wanted to do some more community outreach around these sorts of things. So we thought that when COVID allowed, that would be the sort of vehicle we might go through, is partnering with them around something. But again, COVID's kind of held us back on some of those things so far. The other thing I should mention that we have, there's like 5 of them in the state now, and Scituate has just put one together. It's called a Freedom Team, and it's made up of different people. I think it's like 10 different people in town. So it's the town social worker, it's someone from the police department, someone from the fire department, a psychiatrist, someone from the schools, all these sort of key people. And should there be an incident of bullying or of racism or something like that that happens in town, there is one phone number you call and you reach all of these people. And this team steps in to give support in that situation to the individual.
Yeah, I think that's what got involved in Sharon, is a team
Yeah.
just like that.
Yeah, I know there's one in Franklin and I'm gonna say Natick, sort of out in the western part.
I think the
There's-
clergy in Sharon is part of it as well, and the
Yeah, clergy and
superintendent of
town.
schools.
Yeah. For us, it's the Catholic priest who's in charge, in part of that one.
I'm just curious, Fran Jeffries, I know you're in Bridgewater, and you're there. Has Bridgewater been involved with DEI?
Yes, our community got involved first about 4 years ago. We had an incident that in our post office where a Muslim couple were verbally assaulted, and a community member witnessed this, but came home and realized she had no idea what to do, how to respond. She was embarrassed on behalf of the community. She talked with another person that person sent an email to an assortment of us, and we gathered, and so they formed a community group separate from the Rotary. We had that group as speakers, but until the murder of Floyd George, we really didn't act as a Rotary club. With that, and then with, I would say in our club, probably half were already actively involved in social justice issues. And so it was more familiar territory, shall we say, unfortunately. But, you know, we knew other people, we knew networks. And, but within our club, then we've established a DEI committee and have worked with the other community groups. And one of the outcomes now is that we're together with the other community groups, we're applying to be an international city of peace. And on the one hand, that's kind of a superficial symbolic thing. On the other, what it does is gives us a common platform, I guess, or common umbrella maybe. And so we'll be more deliberate about coordinating activities, about putting together teams to respond and so forth. So that's kind of the brief update on Bridgewater. But I think every community has its own circumstances. And maybe in fairness, you would need to remember that the Duxbury group was in reaction to and response to an emergency situation in their community.
Yeah, I heard about that. Right.
Right. And then they no sooner got through that than they had another one. And then they had the national incident that really set off Rotary's statements. So there've been, they might have paced things out differently if they had had those crises, but they really didn't have any choice. But Lucille's right that once they stepped up, people in the community said, well, I didn't know that's what Rotary did. And it's everything we stand for. And so that's piqued interest, and you've heard the report about their membership growth.
I know. It was quite an impressive PowerPoint also.
Right.
Well, this has been great. Such an eye-opener, everybody, right?
Dietrich, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I just thought, I mean, to sort of, I'm always somebody looking for next steps on solutions to issues raised and questions asked and so forth. And I'm sticking my neck out because I have nothing prepared in that respect. But what I might suggest might be a good thing to do is that, or I put this on the table. I mean, you can decide whether that's a good thing to do. Is what I might suggest is that the Rotary Club in Scituate makes a presentation to your committee and introduces what Rotary a little bit more, tells you the missions that it's engaged in. I mean, the overall mission is to work for peace and understanding. I mean, that's sort of a headline, maybe a one-liner, but specifically there are sort of 7 areas of focus where Rotary is, and you know, Rotary is an organization that's represented all over the world in all different cultures, be it Asia, be it South America, be it Europe, Africa. There are 34,000 clubs in 34,000 cities, something like that. And the areas of focus where Rotary gets involved in, both in town, in the community there are, but also through their network of 34,000 people all over the world. So there are projects that are international. But to not sort of go straight here, to stay focused, to make a presentation to the committee spell out in which areas we do get involved, and then you know with what kind of issues and what kind of problems you might come up that would fall under your committee to sort of look at and make recommendations. You know with which ones to come to Rotary. It's to just sort of give them, it's 7 of them, it's peace and conflict resolution. So that's something that's domestic, you know, how you police a community could fall into that, those kind of things. You know, if a race could be a part of that problem in town and so forth. And then it's disease prevention and treatment. So issues that come up, for example, or may have come up in connection with COVID and so forth, what can be done there to sort of show community concern. Education, literacy, handing out school books to children of families, for example, who may be struggling to buy books for summer reading or something like that. Providing the books would fall into that kind of a project. The clean water, you know, the North River Watershed Association, or what, that's what we have in Scituate, right? I have moved to Philadelphia, so I may not be that familiar with the latest on that. But those are projects that we support. Environment generally, we focus on projects there, and I'm sure Scituate has a lot of projects that potentially could fall into that. We help support families, and particularly single women that may be struggling, or kids that are connected that live in such an environment. Something like so there are sort of very specific areas where we are very effective all over the world, which because they are missions of Rotary. So again, that we make a presentation to you so that you know what we are about, and then you can sort of see if something comes up. Oh, we talked to Rotary about that, or we talked to somebody else. I mean, but at least you know where to contact us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I really like that, because I think giving that context to the rest of the committee who might not know what Rotary does would be really helpful as projects are coming up and we're talking about them, to have you in the back of our mind of what you do and where we could partner. So I'm actually meeting with the chair on Thursday, so I'll bring this up to him as a possibility of something, and see. Our meeting is next Tuesday, so probably not next Tuesday, but maybe the month after would be a good time.
And if this is something that, you know, they think they'd like to pursue, I can hook you and Dietrich up, and Lucille maybe, where you're still, I'll introduce you all via email, and then you guys can take it from there.
Excellent.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thanks, Jean.
All right, so we want to thank Natasha for coming tonight. This was wonderful. We've learned so much. And if I could just take a minute and now put on my Historical Society hat.
And then I have an announcement too,
Okay. On Thursday night, I have a Zoom presentation with local author Lynn Griffin. Some of you may know her. She's written the book, The Dangers of an Ordinary Night.
I read it, it's great.
Which takes place in Scituate. She's going to be on Zoom with us, talking about her book, and about how she did her research in Scituate. She is a child psychologist. She's many things. She's written a lot of books. So if you're interested in coming to that, go to the Historical Society Facebook page, and you'll see the information, and you can register for that. And Lucille?
I read the book. It was a lot of fun. And I just want to just tell everybody, the second Rotary meeting that we're going to have for the month of March will take place on the 23rd. We're back to Wednesdays. Wednesday the 23rd, it will again be a Zoom, and it is, again, one of the areas of focus is the environment. So we want to get into the fisheries. Is Frank Mariachi is going to talk about, is it local, just the waters here in Scituate? Jean, do you know?
He is going to talk about the history of fishing in Scituate yesterday, today, and tomorrow. He'll be talking about some of the international issues that fishermen face, how Scituate has gone from a huge fleet of commercial fishing boats to now we only have 5, all those sorts of things.
And I know the regulations for the poor fishermen are really expanding. So anyway, that should be a really interesting program. That will be on the 23rd. And I know between now and the 23rd, I think I know that the leadership group will be meeting, and they will fill us in on the 23rd. So again, I want to first thank Jean for setting this up. The webmaster and our friend Jean, thank you so much. And Natasha, it was a terrific, terrific program tonight. You've opened our minds for us, and I thank you. I'll see you for the art show. I can't wait to see that too.
And it looks like Stephen might have a question.
Well, actually, I just wanted to point out, since I just thought of it, but Shelterbox USA is hosting on International Women's Day, which is March 8th, a virtual panel. It will have Jennifer Jones, our first woman or female president of Rotary International, Kerry Murray, who's the president of Shelterbox USA, which is the disaster relief organization. And there'll be some other international ladies on there as well. And it's at 3 p.m. and it's basically how women fare during a natural disaster. They suffer more than men, and also how living in refugee camps affects them. And with what's going on in the Ukraine, that's going to become a major issue again for all of us. And you go to shelterboxusa.org/International Women's Day, and you can register.
Could you give us that again? I didn't get that.
I will, Lucille, I'll send out the link to everyone.
Yeah,
Okay.
it should be a good program.
Yeah, I'll send the link tonight.
Thanks for joining us. Okay. Everybody have a good night, safe night, pray for Ukraine, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. And thank you again, Natasha. Good night.
Thank you.
Tasha.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, really quick before you leave, if you want to see a replay of this meeting, it'll be on the Rotary Facebook page, maybe later tonight, but more than likely tomorrow morning.
Lovely.
Thank you, Jean.
All right.
Thank you very much, Natasha, for the presentation.
Bye-bye. Good night.
Good night.
Night.